What is impacting the nature around you? It might be habitat loss, noise, light, drought, or the many impacts that climate change may bring. But an important factor that may go unrecognized is the introduction of new species. Did you know that this bee that you see every day is non-native? Or this squirrel? How about this bird? Many of you probably knew they were all introduced species. But how about this lizard? Or this jumping spider? What about this plant? Or this millipede? It's not so easy. Even taxonomists may know one group really well, but miss something obvious in the field that might be introduced. I'm interested in this. I want to know more. I want to be able to spot something that may have a negative impact on the ecosystem around me so that we can try to stop its movement. The reason I built this site was because I couldn't easily find this information. So why is this important information? Introduced species can have a significant impact on an ecosystem. The aim of this data site is to inform in an easily accessible way about the origination and movement of introduced species, and to build awareness about the impacts they may have. The collective power of community science can alert researchers, land managers, health experts, and more by catching newly introduced species which may have the potential to establish or become invasive by using observational data made by participants just like you. As a few examples, introduced species have the potential to vector new and emerging diseases, become established as climate change modifies habitats, impact native species to varying degrees, including extirpation, reduce biodiversity, become a human annoyance or threat, have detrimental impacts on crops, farmed or cultivated stock, or change the balance in an ecosystem. As much as 1/3 of all species have already become threatened or extinct directly due to introduced species. That's incredible, and we can't afford to ignore this. You might enjoy the sound of those new birds in your neighborhood, or the smell of that new night-blooming plant, but at what cost to the environment? How did they get here? Wherever you may be in the world, there are introduced species. They are new species with the potential to become invasive. As global trade increased, so did the movement of our plants and animals. They hitch rides on cargo ships. Maybe they got packed in your luggage on vacation. They were intentionally released into the environment for hunting or through the pet trade. One of the most impactful introduced fungi is white nose syndrome, which has wiped out entire bat colonies and may have initially been spread on the boots of researchers, the very people trying to save them. Take a look at this map of the newly introduced South African mantis to the Los Angeles region, and you will see that they are radiating out of the coastal ports. Labels matter? Let me back up a minute and talk about a few important terms. Native species are naturally occurring species in a geographic region. Introduced species are non-native species that are introduced to a geographic region where they do not naturally exist. They may have been released intentionally or unintentionally, typically by anthropogenic means. Invasive species are non-native species that are a threat to native species or to the environment. They may also directly impact humans or cause economic loss. Introduced species are not always invasive species, but early detection and careful monitoring can help make those evaluations. Naturalized species are non-native species which have been established over multiple generations without impact to native biodiversity. Threatened species are those which are vulnerable to extinction in the near future. Just because a species isn't officially listed does not mean they aren't threatened. The International Union for Conservation of Nature uses the classifications least concern, near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, and extinct. For the data I am providing on this site, I'm using the general term threatened, which may incorporate any of those categories as species status do change. How can you contribute to this science? Walk around a city and it's clear to see many habitats are disconnected, rows and rows of divided private plots. Move away from the city and private land is blocked off by fences. Natural habitats are fractured by roads. These are no longer the domains of scientists. It takes all of us to raise awareness and be on the lookout to see what is happening all around us. Your contributions to open source platforms such as iNaturalist, which I used here to collect all of my data from, is invaluable. You may post an endangered species that hasn't been seen in decades and not even know it. Or you may post a newly introduced species that no one is aware of yet. You do not need to be an expert. You do not need to be able to identify it. There is a whole community that will help you make identifications. And your contributions do matter. We, the community, are essential to this science, and the earlier an introduced species is detected, the better chance there is of containment and eradication. I am always happy to answer any questions about iNaturalist and other platforms. Please reach out to me anytime. I'm YetiCat. Drop me a line. Now, I invite you to explore the site and play around with the interactive maps. I hope this piques your interest and encourages more people to look out for introduced species, as well as providing an essential database for research. Thank you for listening and for participating. We can all contribute to this invaluable research.